Conventional wisdom suggests that a kid on his fifth school in his sixth year of college basketball isn't likely to work out. But Devin Askew wants to show the world that that type of conventional wisdom is actually antiquated thought in the modern era of college basketball. We'll recount all the ways Askew has been a victim of circumstance and discuss what to expect from a one-time five-star prospect in his last chance to show he can play at the highest level. It's a portal profile as we do a Devin Askew deep dive, all coming up next on Holy Nova. And hi, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Holy Nova. We're part of the Big East Energy Network. I'm Matt Janus, joined by my usual partner in crime, David White. David, we are getting closer and closer, under 2 months to go until the start of the season. It feels like just yesterday we're bemoaning the fact that we're still 6 months away from getting it tipped off.
I know. You walk outside now, there's a little nip in the air. You can feel fall coming, which means basketball is just that much closer.
You are so soft, my friend. You live in North Carolina. What's the nip in the air? 83 degrees when you walk out to your garage for
No, it's
work?
like in the mid 70s. You got a little nip.
Wow, that's why you've been wearing a hooded sweatshirt all summer long. It all is starting to make sense now. You gotta keep warm, right?
Yeah, I mean, my wife has laid into me for just wearing sweatshirts all the time. She says I'm a bum. I don't know what to think. Like, I don't know if we're any good at this, or maybe you're just holding us up, and I hope your shoulders are strong enough to carry
Oh,
me.
no, 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 no. Don't put that on me, my friend. Nobody wants that. I'll tell you what, though, there's no doubt about it. At least your wife is only calling you a bum for your wardrobe. My wife has an assortment of reasons that she refers to me as a bum. Hey, I learned a valuable lesson this week, by the way, too. I was trying to teach my 4-year-old soccer, and by trying to teach my 4-year-old soccer, he's already better at the sport than me, but I was out in the backyard trying to play with him. If you don't know how to play soccer, don't try to do a header. I got a shiner going right here on the top of my forehead at the moment.
Oh man, you need to come down here and practice with Marshall. He just slams his head into the floor, so now that thing is rock solid.
Well, I got the forehead size already working, so now I just gotta build that toughness up. Speaking of toughness, it has been a tough go for Devin Askew over the course of his college career. I mean, this kid, you want to talk about bad luck befalling an individual. Askew coming to Villanova this season, his first and only year as a Wildcat, a well-traveled young man, to say the least. It is his sixth year of college basketball, and as we mentioned in the open, it is his fifth school. He came with such lofty expectations to the college level, but the story of Devin Askew is multi-layered, multifaceted, and the thing about it is the adversity has come from so many different directions, and you give him credit for putting his head down and keep working, but it hasn't gone, or at least worked out the way that he had hoped that it would when he started his college career. As you kind of look at Devin Askew and everything he has been through, what were your initial thoughts when you heard he was coming to Villanova?
I mean, I think it's exciting. Former five-star recruit, obviously started at Kentucky. I think he probably took a lot of blame for one of Kentucky's worst seasons. I think that team, they were 9-16, so it wasn't a great year at Kentucky. It just wasn't a very good team, and following on the heels of every John Calipari class at Kentucky that had five-star after five-star, he struggled a little bit, but I think he's going to be good for Nova, if for no other reason than he provides a veteran presence. He's been at 4 other schools, so he's had to learn 4 different systems under 4 different coaches. So he will be adept at picking up the Kevin Willard system.
Well, the funny thing about it too, David, is when you hear a guy, at least in the old school perspective of the way the sport used to work, you never obviously heard, fifth school in 6 years. That's a pre-COVID mindset. But, a guy that transferred multiple times, you're always worried about would he be coachable or not. Devin Askew, by all accounts, at every school he's been to, coachable has not been a problem in terms of the things that have befallen him. And let's kind of layer how this all has gone down for Askew over the course of his career. It starts back at the aforementioned pandemic. This guy was the Orange County Player of the Year, modern day, his junior season back in 2020. And he's expected to be kind of the belle of the ball in 2021 on the recruiting circuit. He had already been, a 5-star, and people thought he had a chance to work his way into a top 10 recruit in that class. And then the pandemic hit. Obviously, different areas came back at different speeds. They didn't want to take any chances. So he decides to reclassify, give up his senior year of high school, and go to Kentucky. He's going to play for Cal. He's going to be the next line in the great guards that you see at Big Blue Nation. And he's going to do it as a really young kid. Someone that should be a senior in high school is going to start his opener as the point guard at Kentucky, freshly turned 18-year-old, and he's going to do it on, as you mentioned, probably the worst Kentucky team since Billy Gillespie was involved. And they got off to a disastrous start. 1-6 was their record. You mentioned their overall finish. Nothing went right. He actually got benched a month and a half into the season. The Kentucky fans were all over him. And you can go find article after article of Bruiser Flint, the former Drexel coach, people know from the area, who has been John Calipari's right-hand man for decades upon decades, was with him at UMass and was with him at Kentucky, obviously, and now is with him at Arkansas. And he's worked with Askew very closely. Calipari talked about Devin Askew's mindset and his next play mentality and how he made a lot of mistakes. And that wasn't kind of unexpected considering the circumstance that he had been thrown into. But the one thing he didn't do was hang his head, mope, or kind of get stuck in those mistakes. He was already the type of kid that would move on to the next play, and he got better and better over the course of his freshman season. But there had been so much scar tissue in place, and Kentucky, as Kentucky is wont to do, had another top 5 recruiting class waiting in the wings. They had promised those kids playing time. So it kind of became a situation where both sides decided a fresh start was probably in their best interest. Askew immediately had all types of interest in the transfer portal. He goes to Texas, and then it just doesn't work out again at Texas. This is the one stop where you can kind of point to there wasn't a great excuse. New to the system, it just didn't click, didn't fit his skill sets. He did not.
Texas also had a lot of depth at guard that year, that there was a lot of competition. And going back to Kentucky for just a second, you come in the pandemic, you don't get a normal offseason, you don't get that. I'm sure Kentucky has the same thing that most big programs have, where their NBA guys come back to campus, they work out, they play pickup with the guys. I'm sure that was limited. You're not playing in front of many. I don't remember 2021. Were there any fans?
I think by the end of the year, but very limited.
Yeah,
very limited.
But you're playing in front of nobody. All the mistakes, they pile up. So I think, that was just a lot to add to a kid that, like you said, should have been playing high school basketball. As you said, he got better, which is to be expected. He probably would have seen more of that growth if he had a full regular offseason to be in the gym with his guys, be in the gym with those NBA guys, be with Cal. And then, Texas was loaded at guard that year.
They were, but Askew didn't play well, and he will admit that. He'd be the first guy that'll talk about, look, that situation just didn't work out. I think he shot 15% from three-point range. Obviously, that's a problem. He was pressing, I think, because they were so loaded at guard, because he's trying to earn his way into the rotation, and because, let's be honest, this is now his second stop. You don't want to be the guy that's 3 schools in 3 years. He really wants this to work out, and when it's not right away, all of a sudden you're starting to press that button, and now he's also playing for multiple coaches that are very aggressive in their coaching styles. They get on kids, they're riding them. And Askew, who is, again, a coachable kid, you go back and read some of those stories when he was at Kentucky. His dad said, people are always asking me, why is Cal so tough on your kid? I tell Cal, be tougher on my kid. Make sure you coach him up. Make him understand what he needs to do to get better. He can handle it. He's prepared for it. So he had that type of upbringing. He handled it pretty well. It just, didn't work out at Texas. So now he is back on the portal because, again, that's a situation where both sides probably thought new fresh circumstances would work out well for each. He goes to Cal. And you could argue his first season at Cal was his best college season. He goes out to a Pac-12 program. He's averaging 15 points per game. He's knocking down his three-point shots. He's getting to the rim. And he's doing it all, by the way, second half of his campaign where he's trying to play through a sports hernia, which, as we know from everything you've learned about that injury, is as painful as you could possibly begin to even try to play through in sports. And it's something that's eventually going to make you sit down. But while you're trying to play through it, it is utter agony. And he's able to go out there and score double digits pretty much every single night. Kind of a testament to the physical and mental toughness that kid brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, he was playing really well. I mean, he was shooting 86% from the free throw line. So he's getting to the line. Not only is he getting there, he's making them. So it's unfortunate that, like, it's his 2 seasons at Cal are both cut short due to injuries. And who knows if that was the fit that he needed. But yeah, I mean, you can't play. That is such a painful injury that playing through that does show a little toughness, and it's unfortunate that it seemed like he had finally figured it out, started picking up the system, picking up the college game, was playing well, and then has to sit down.
Okay, so then he comes back that second year. Remember, he misses a lot of the offseason workouts because that's a pretty intensive procedure you go through to get that sports hernia fixed. By the time he gets back, he's a little bit behind the 8 ball, and he's kind of trying to press to get his way back to where he was the season ago, because now all of a sudden we're deep into that college career. He's finally getting to return to a school for the second time, but he's coming off as significant an injury as you could possibly have. And as he works his way back, he bangs up his foot. He seems to be healed, tries to return, plays 6 games, foot goes, his season's done. That ends his time at Cal, and now he's back to the portal yet again. And as you mentioned, to finally find a home and feel like you found a perfect spot for your tools, and to have it end in kind of the blink of an eye the way it did, and now all of a sudden you're back in the portal, and there's a lot of people that are going to be out there saying, hey, he didn't live up to expectations at Kentucky. He didn't live up to expectations at Texas. Yeah, he put up some numbers at Cal, but he's damaged goods. He couldn't stay healthy. And all of a sudden, he became a mid-major player now. He's got to go to Long Beach State last year. And that had to be, you would think for most kids, that would be a tough blow for the psyche to take. And that might be too much to overcome. And to Askew's credit, I mean, what a season he was able to put together last year in the Big West.
Yeah, I mean, averaging almost 19 a game. You're looking at 38% from 3, 89% from the free throw line, while playing 36 minutes. So he's playing a lot of minutes. And to be able to put up those numbers with those percentages, it's not like he was just jacking up a lot of shots. He's shooting the ball well. So I think, like, obviously he can take it. Hopefully he's healed and everything. It seems like it is. Playing 36 minutes isn't easy.
Here's the question, though, David. How good's the Big West? How you put up those type of numbers? I mean, he averaged 18 points a game. You mentioned the shooting percentages, 4.5 rebounds a game, 4.5 assists per game, almost 2 steals per contest. Guy only made all-conference honorable mention. Does that make any sense to you? I was looking at that line, and I just had already written down first team all Big West, just knowing what I know about mid-major basketball, also the pedigree that he brought to the table, and everybody kind of knowing who he was. I think that's another, victim of circumstance situation where a guy who was a 5-star recruit, and now he has to come to the mid-major level. He's been at college basketball this long. I think expectations were just so overwhelming for what people thought he would do last year at that level that even when he put up pretty gaudy numbers, I mean, all honorable mention. What the heck?
I think it's probably a victim of expectations. He's probably also a victim of, honestly, sometimes these mid-major conferences, they're just voting for the guys who finish at the top of the conference. So the fact that Long Beach State finished middle of the pack, he probably lost some votes just because of that. You're not talking about national media members coming in and voting for who they think the first team all conference should be. These are coaches voting. They're probably voting based off of what guys torch them all season. And it seems like he was pretty steady all year. He gave you what you expected to get from him. He didn't have any big highs or lows. So I think that was probably part of it as well. But yeah, I would say I don't know how 19 points a game on 36 minutes doesn't get you at least second team all conference.
Well, and then not only that, so then he goes to the portal again this year. He gets that medical red shirt. You might wonder, how in the heck does the guy have a 6-year of eligibility? Well, he got the medical red shirt for the year. He only played 6 games at Cal. And then that first year at Kentucky, that didn't count. Remember, that was the year coming back from COVID. The NCAA, it wasn't full practice in terms of all the abilities to have full facilities, to have full attendance. They wanted to make sure the players weren't going to opt out. So in an attempt to try to coax them into playing, they gave him that free year. So it didn't count against his eligibility. So he's one of the last of the true COVID players that will be around and for a long time in their college career. So he hits the portal, though, on 3 ranks here. This surprised me when he signed with Villanova because I knew he was not a top 100, top 200 guy. I kind of figured he would be in that next stretch, 443rd, according to On3 in the rankings. So here's the thing about Devin Askew. There is a pedigree that he had coming out of high school. That's a long time ago now. That's obviously a different lifetime ago. And now there is a reputation that he's kind of garnered as a disappointment. And the truth to me, as is the case with most things in life, lies somewhere in between. But for him to come out at 443rd on the transfer portal this past year, it kind of gives you an idea that there are some limitations to his game. So let's kind of talk about his strengths and weaknesses. He's a 6'3" combo guard. He can play the point guard. He was kind of viewed as a natural point guard coming out of high school. But remember, he only played 3 years of high school. He didn't have that true freshman season that most players would have. And he kind of got thrown into the fire. And he just never quite developed into that true natural point that people were hoping he would be.
Yeah, and I think that part of that ranking is just going to be the fact that we don't know what he's going to be. Obviously, he has a bad year at Kentucky, or struggles at Kentucky, I'll say. He has a bad year at Texas behind a bunch of other good guards. It looks like, again, we just went through it. So it's been 6 years since we've seen him in high school at the peak of his level. We don't know what that Long Beach and the Big West stats are going to transfer to into the Big East. So, I mean, I think it's probably some people are sleeping on him. I think that, again, I said the same thing about Acaden Lewis. What are you going to do when you see that? Are you just going to work so much harder in the offseason? You're going to be in the gym putting up shots, getting ready to prove everybody wrong, that you're closer to that guy who went to Kentucky out of high school than the guy who struggled at Texas. What are you going to do?
Well, and then the other thing too is what kind of shooter is he at this point? Because you look at the Kentucky numbers were up and down. The Texas numbers, albeit a much smaller sample size, were not good. The Cal numbers were much improved, but still not what maybe you thought they would be. And then last year they were very good to almost great, knocking down 38% of his 3-point shots. But it's easier to get your shot off, obviously.
Yeah.
Out there than it will be in the Big East this year. That's $1 billion question to me. And then the quickness. Does it translate to the highest level? That was the thing that I think Kentucky fans, outside of the turnovers, were most frustrated by. He struggled at times to blow by people, and the report on him coming out of high school was he could kind of get to the rim at will. He's good at getting to the rim, but he's not kind of that, wow, he can do whatever. The tantalizing skill set that we mentioned in our last episode with Caden Lewis. We haven't always seen that come to fruition with Askew during his time in college.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big question. Obviously, with coming back from injury, you want to make sure that he's still got that step, especially against better defenders. That was most of the problem with Kentucky. You're playing against SEC defenders who can stay in front of you. They're just as quick as you are. So what are you going to do now? But I mean, his 3-point percentage, I think that's a little overblown. He he's been right around 30% for his career. So yeah, we'd like to see it a little better, but it's not terrible. It's not like he's shooting in the 20s over here.
No, he's not a liability. It's gotta be
Yeah.
higher than 30%, though. 30% is
Oh,
a
yeah.
problem, especially in Kevin Willard's system without they don't have dominant bigs. They have good bigs with a lot of upside, but they don't have dominant bigs. So you need your guards to be able to score, and you've got a Zion Stanford, who's a mid-range jump shooter. You've got a Acaden Lewis, who we think is developing into a pretty good shooter, but again, that's all speculation. We're gonna have to see how it goes in the game. Bryce Lindsey has a chance to be really good. There are other pieces that are question marks that we'll have to wait and see what they are. But you need people to be able to consistently step up and make open shots. And if you don't have that, you're going to have guys that can play downhill all day. But in a half-court game, you're going to have a hard time scoring. And especially when you're not blessed with a ton of offensive rebounds, you're going to have a real hard time scoring if you're not able to make open shots.
Well, I think he's going to benefit from Caden Lewis's explosiveness, his ability to get past the primary defender, draw help, and get the drive and kick. If he's open and let's say he shoots anywhere close to that nearly 38% last year, that's not a liability. That's a shooter that you can go to. Yeah. Right. That is a guy who you want taking that shot. So I think it's going to be, maybe he got his shot off a little easier last year, but if people are in help and he's getting open shots, there's nothing easier to get off than an open shot.
That is such a good point. And then the strengths that he will bring to the table. Obviously, he can get some steals. Now, at time to time, he can get blown by defensively, but he will get a lot of steals. He's done that at any point that he has played over the course of his college career. And then he is what you look for to be that calming influence for Caden Lewis, who's going to be going through all of this for the first time. He will have a guy that pretty much plays the same position, that had a lot of the same expectations that Lewis is facing coming into this year for Villanova on an even bigger stage at Kentucky. And now he can kind of guide him through that. And by all accounts, has really turned himself into a good leader. Not a hugely vocal leader. He's more of a leader by example. As a matter of fact, he did a video for the Villanova social media team where he pretty much admitted, hey, I'm not a guy that's going to say a ton, but I am going to go out there and be a leader by example. You can follow what I do day in, day out and be successful. And that's exactly the type of thing that you need when you have an Acaden Lewis, a person that you can point to and say, hey, do it like Devin's doing it, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, and I think he's going to need to be a little more vocal. I don't think he has to be the guy who's just getting in people's faces. He's not going to be the guy but if Acaden Lewis is struggling, he's going to have to be the guy that goes over and talks to him and says, hey, he's played in the brightest lights. He's played under the weight of Big Blue Nation. He's felt I don't even know how to describe what they would have said about him during his freshman year. The other thing he does well is he passes the ball well.
Yeah.
I mean, even at Kentucky, he was averaging almost 3 assists a game, 4.5 last year. So he's going to pass the ball well. He's going to get it to guys in good positions. So I think he offers a lot to this Nova team, even if he's not the primary option on offense.
And then that becomes the big question. And by all accounts, it will work out. But you just don't know how it's going to go until you watch it unfold. No matter what, there will be a role, and a significant role, for Devin Askew. But listing all the things he's been through over the course of his college career, understanding that this is his last opportunity to show he came into college saying that not only does he want to be an NBA player, he wants to get to the NBA as fast as he possibly can, echoing the Cal sentiment that got him in so much trouble over the course of his Kentucky career. You can see what Cal tells people on the recruiting trail. We'll get you here, we'll get you out, we'll get you to the league as fast as possible. That doesn't always work out for everybody. Unfortunately, Askew was one of those people, but he obviously has aspirations to play the game professionally at the highest level that he can reach. He wants it still to be the NBA, we'll have to wait and see what he does this year, if he's going to have to do something dramatic in order to put himself in position to get that opportunity. But either way, he's got to show something, because you're playing for highest level in Europe, MB G League opportunities. There's a lot of different things that are on the line for him. And if Caden Lewis starts to come into his own, and now all of a sudden Askew's role starts to dissipate, and while he's not going to be, banished to the bench, but if he's going from playing 33, 35 minutes a night down to 30 minutes a night, and then to 20, 25 minutes a night, how does that work out? And what do those conversations between he and the coaching staff look like? Again, by all accounts, he's going to handle it well. And at every stop he's been in, there haven't been any major problems or anything like that would suggest you have to worry about it. But it is something you have to keep in mind, because this is it for him. There is no next year that he's pointing to that, all right, I'll be patient now because it'll be my turn at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said, he seems to be a great team guy, a coachable guy. I also think there are plenty of opportunities for him and Acaden Lewis to be on the floor together. You get two ball handlers on the floor. Like Kevin Willard loves to run that high ball screen. If you have two guys who can both get into the lane, create something, that's got to be an advantage to a Kevin Willard offense. I mean, we heard about him at Seton Hall, and if you've got guards that can go, you'll look good. So I think that even if Acaden Lewis, which we both projected, starts looking better and better and better as the season goes on, I think there's still a big role that Devin Askew can play on this team. Even if, like I said, if he's not the primary scorer, like I think that he just would provide something. Maybe Acaden Lewis works better off the ball, and he does play the point guard more. Who knows?
Well, that'll be interesting. That'll also be part of the thing for the coaching staff to have to figure out how much do they want to make sure they're getting Lewis experience on the ball, because long term, at his size, you'd have to think it, especially if he wants to be an NBA player, he's gonna have to be a point guard. There's not a lot of 6'3" shooting guards in the NBA. That's a lot harder to do. Trust me, as somebody who got lambasted for picking nothing but guards in the one-on-one fictitious team that we created for Villanova's all-time roster, I do understand that size matters in basketball. I'm not completely oblivious to that fact. And he, that's the other thing too, playing them together, I think they absolutely will do that, but they're also both a little undersized. So that'll be something that you'll have to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, having two 6'3" guards out there is going to be difficult. I don't think it's impossible to get over, but they're going to have to play above their height. They're going to have to play bigger guys, and they're going to have to be tough. So that's going to be on them as well defensively.
Well, and the good news, though, in that regard, at least, is the fact that you have some strength there. I mean, Acaden Lewis, we talked about where he stands in the strength and conditioning program inside of Villanova. I know he's 19 years old, but he's still, or about to become 19 years old, but he's still a young guy who's new to a college lifting program, and he's amongst the top 5 going up against grown men. And then, speaking of grown men, Devin Askew is a grown man. I mean, he's in his year of college basketball, so he's been in this program long enough that he has plenty of strength, and I think that can make up at least for a little bit of lack of size. And they're also both kind of low, which will help a little bit too.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's anything that you can say experience matters. I think we have seen that in college basketball. I think Cal tried to buck the trend by saying, "Oh, I can win with freshmen." It turns out he was only able to do it once. You need guys who have been in college for a few years, who have been in those situations, who aren't going to be rattled by the moment, to be ready to play. And I think that's the calming effect that Askew can bring to the team.
And the other thing is you coach him hard, and, Kevin Willard, who has been known to get on players from time to time, but is nowhere in the zip code of a John Calipari, so you don't have to worry about Askew. And then if he's getting on Lewis a little bit, you'd have to think Devin will just kind of look over there and sticker. If you got a kid getting frustrated on, like, you should have heard the stuff Cal was saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
When we were 1-6, and he was banishing me and blaming me for everything, you should have heard. But it is going to be very interesting to see how he handles it all. And, the other thing that is really cool, talk about perspective of a guy who has been through so much over the course of his career. He found meditation after his initial injury with Cal. I mean, he had already been through it at Kentucky and then threw it at Texas. Now he finally thinks he's found his spot. He gets injured. He was kind of just looking for something to cling to. Meditation, he said, has really helped him. He actually said on that Villanova video that he did during the offseason, his hidden talent is that he's a great meditator and that he can kind of shut his brain off. And you wonder how valuable that is with all the pressures. I mean, you have lived through the ups and downs of living and dying on a college basketball season with your time on coaching staff, so over your 10 years in the sport. It's tough, man. It is a lot of hours, a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, a lot of people that while they're willing to tell you you're the greatest when things go well, they're also willing to tell you the opposite when things don't go quite as well.
Oh, certainly. You will hear everything. And I think that meditation is going to be big for him. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that he has played behind really good lead guards. Like we said, at Texas, at Cal, I mean, by the second year at Cal, Stojakovic was going up. He was looking like a great player. So like, I know he got injured, and we don't know how that season would have played out with him and Andre, is that his first name?
I was waiting for you to try to pronounce the name. I couldn't remember how to pronounce it, to be honest, and I couldn't find a video where I trusted the pronunciation. Was the other thing. I watched like 5 of them. They said it 4 different ways, so I just decided we were gonna kind of try to skate past that. But you were bold, my friend. You decided to go for it.
I will not try and pronounce AJ. I will not try and pronounce that last name.
But,
yeah, Stojakovic, I'll try it.
So what is your kind of bottom line on what you're thinking for Devin Askew here for Villanova? There's clearly a path and a very important role for him to play. Obviously, earlier in the season is going to be paramount as Caden Lewis finds his footing and all these newcomers. Granted, he's one of the newcomers, but all these newcomers kind of try to gel together. They're going to lean on his experience, it would seem to me. How important do you view him early and throughout this Villanova season?
I mean, early on, I think that he is going to be the guy who's kind of shepherding everybody along, whether that's through finding his voice or through just like, hey, do what I do, watch me, and let's roll. As it goes on, I mean, I would expect him to probably play 25 to 30 minutes a game. I don't know. It's hard. I love pieces of his game. And if he puts it all together and he shows anything like what he was showing coming out of high school, he's going to be a very big part. If the foot's just not right, if there's something not right, it could be he's losing minutes as we're going into January and February. Could be earlier, but I think probably around 25 to 30 minutes a game, probably, I don't know, 10 to 12 points.
I was going to ask you how many points he was going to score after you talked about Acaden Lewis and dropping 20 a game and
at the end of the season.
A conservative prediction was 20 points per game, by the way, from
at the end of the season. End of the season, not in season-long average.
You know what? When he averages 20 points per game, you are going to be making fun of me at the end of the year, and I hope that you are doing exactly that. It was.
I'm saving the receipts.
It was just funny how you evolved over the course of that episode. You went from trying to temper expectations to kind of building them up for the youngster, and so now we look at it. Devin Askew, you always talk about the transition from mid-major basketball to high-major basketball and how the stats and the production and the speed of the game, how everybody adjusts to that and how you can kind of project it and how difficult it is to be. This one has the extra wrinkle of, we saw him play high-major basketball for 4 years. We'll call Pac-12 basketball high major basketball, right? It was.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was, I guess.
it was iffy. Conference of champions, as Bill Walton would say. But he played legit 4 years of high major basketball. Granted, he was injured for most of the final 2 of those years. The first year did not go that well. The second year didn't go any better, but he showed flashes at that level. How do you kind of figure out what he looks like inside the Big East from the different levels of competition that he has competed at over the course of his career?
I think it's hard because you're looking at SEC back in 2020 was a different league than it is now. Now it is more up and down. Back then it was probably a little more rough and tumble like the Big East, a little more, we're going to bump you, we're going to do all that kind of stuff. To Texas and the Big 12, to Cal and the Pac-12, which I don't know. Nobody watched the Pac-12 after dark. They tip off too late for me. But it's hard to say. I think that he can lean on that experience. And I think that it's not going to be anything he hasn't seen before. So I expect him to do a little bit better than I would most mid-major transfers. But I don't know. He's going to get hit. You're going to get hit in the Big East. So what are you going to do? Are you prepared for that?
By the way, to say that the SEC was a different conference back then, not only was it a different conference in terms of the style of play, it was one of the worst power conferences back then. And now it has become unquestionably the best power conference. It's amazing how much college basketball, college athletics as a whole, but particularly college basketball, have evolved over the course of a half decade. Isn't it? It's kind of just wild to think about.
It's absolutely crazy that, I mean, it's NIL. NIL, you make it legal to pay people. And hey, those SEC football schools said, oh, we got money. You have money? We have it.
Yeah, we couldn't afford to pay any of the under-the-table money we were using on football for basketball. Yeah. We couldn't waste those resources.
That would have brought too much attention.
Above the table, now we just give it out like it's candy. There's no problem whatsoever. And you know what? Okay, that's the game. Everybody's got to adjust. We've seen it inside the Big East. UConn's done a nice job adjusting to it. St. John's has done a nice job adjusting to it. That's the painful part for Villanova. They adjusted to it. They were spending money. They just, the allocation of said money and how all the pieces worked out obviously wasn't what they were hoping for. And now you're kind of putting all the pieces back together from a place of disadvantage, trying to start anew with a new coaching staff when everybody else is 3-4 years into this NIL system. And Villanova's got the infrastructure in place between the general manager and the fundraising and all of that. But in terms of how they want to execute a vision, putting a vision together that Kevin Willard is trying to craft and what can work at Villanova, that's the hard part. And that's where they're a little bit behind right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think two advantages are the infrastructure and the championship pedigree. If you can pay guys what an Alabama is playing, but you also have, hey, we've won national championships. We've been in the biggest games. We're going to get guys to the NBA. That's also important to guys. It's when there's a vast difference between what that championship pedigree is offering versus Alabama that I think it really comes into play. So I think that Villanova's in a good spot. I don't think that the Kyle Neptune era set them back too far. I mean, it was a setback, but I think that this is a good reset, and it was a good understanding that, hey, we got to go a different direction. We're not going to allow this to fester for 5-6 years where now we're completely out of the zeitgeist of the country.
Well, and the interesting thing to hear coaches on the recruiting trail or players on the recruiting trail talk about Villanova and how they grew up watching Villanova and how important they were to the sport. This is your sweet spot kind of in
Yeah.
that situation, because you look at it and, the last national championship was 7 years ago now. The last Final Four was 4 years ago now. That means the kids that you're recruiting were 17 years old. They were 13 the last time you went to the Final Four. They were 10 when you won a national championship. That's very much not only in their memory banks, but when they were fundamentally coming into becoming fans of the sport. So that's right in your wheelhouse. But if you don't make this start to happen soon, now all of a sudden you're not exactly Georgetown where it's 35, 40 years away, but you know who you can become pretty quickly? Syracuse, where it's like,
Yeah.
none of these kids remember when Syracuse was good. They know about Jim Boeheim, they know about Mello, but they didn't grow up watching Syracuse as a force in college basketball. And look how hard it's been for them to try to get it back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think I caught some flack from Georgetown fans saying
Caught
that.
much flack. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to have somebody other than me catching all the grief for something that was said in one of these episodes.
But yeah, I mean, you have to stay relevant. That's the thing. Once you become irrelevant, it's so hard to get back to relevancy. So right now, Nova hasn't reached that. They're still very relevant in terms of the national picture. It's just getting the guys back on campus that will take you back to that stage.
Hey, speaking of irrelevant, they're going to love this up on Hawk Hill, but what a natural transition. St. Joe's has fallen on hard times, obviously. I have a couple friends that are big St. Joe's fans, and they honestly, truly believe that Jay Wright convinced St. Joe's to hire Billy Lang as a plant to try to do in the Holy War arrivals. And well, you know what? As they once said about Richard Nixon, you don't have Billy Lang to kick around anymore, as he decided 2 months before the start of the season, and this college basketball thing is not for me, and decided to go take a job in the player development office for the New York Knicks. That's only going to further those
You mean
conspiracy
the
theories,
Nova
by the
Knicks?
way. Exactly. Going of all franchises to the Knicks. But, I love Billy Lang for everything he did. It was his conversation. That story has been told many, many times in the car with Jay Wright during that disastrous 2013 season, where Jay was really down and said, "What's wrong? Why has this gotten so far off the tracks?" And Billy Lang, who had just returned, said, "Because it's different than what it was when we first started. We're taking different kids. We're looking for different personalities. We got to go back to who we were when we first arrived at Villanova." And all that did was lead to Villanova ending up winning 2 national championships, getting to 3 more Final Fours, and becoming one of the preeminent programs in the country that you were just alluding to, that can still have an impact on the recruiting trail when you're talking to kids now almost a decade later. But that was not a great move by Billy Lang to leave at that stage. That's not cool to do to your kids. Not a good look for Lang, and not a good look for St. Joe's either, that your coach would do that. What a mess up on Hawk Hill.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a coach leave of their own choice this close to the season. Now, obviously, I mean, you and I were talking that obviously coaches have been let go for things, and you get the kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. There's something going on either with the NCAA or some sort of internal investigation. But for a coach to do this to his guys, like those are your guys, that's hard. I can't imagine what his players are feeling like right now. You just kind of got abandoned, and you're just now getting into full workouts, full off-season practices, getting ready for a season, and now all of a sudden, oh, coach is gone. He's up in New York. I don't like it. I think that's just a bad look all around.
Well, and then the story gets weirder when they lose their invitation to the basketball players showcase tournament that they had been scheduled to play. They were originally going to be in the main bracket. Then they had already been downgraded to the showcase portion of the event, but still a nice opportunity. And then they just got disinvited when Billy Lang left. Evidently, the deal was with Billy Lang, not with St. Joe's. How do you schedule games as a prerequisite of who your coach is? I mean, I know college athletics has changed. You have been involved with making schedules, though, during your time in the operations of a Division I college basketball department. Has it really changed that much? Is that what we're down to now at this point? That coaches have to be there in order for these games to still happen? What?
No, I've never heard of that. St. Joe's obviously did not read the contract close enough because
spoken like a lawyer. There you go.
This is absolutely nuts. If you guys want us out of your tournament, okay, you're going to have to pay us a lot of money because there's a contract right there.
The craziest part is the athletic director came out with a statement and she said, we had a backup plan in place. We will proceed to the backup plan. So obviously they knew this was a possibility, or he's trying to cover and bluff her way through it. That's not a great bluff if you're telling people, hey, we always knew that we could get kicked out of this thing. We decided to go ahead with it anyway.
This whole situation has me shocked. I can't believe, from coaches leaving this close to the season to all of our contracts were for whatever university to play, whatever university. Doesn't matter who the coach is. This is the schedule. If anybody backs out, you got to pay me some money.
It's just wild to think about. Speaking of wild to think about, all right, so then two things. Steve Donahue, it gets weirder, by the way, for St. Joe's. So Steve Donahue, who was the head coach at Penn, by all accounts, very likable guy, had great success during his time at Cornell, tried to go up to Boston College. Boston College is a mess of an athletic department. Nobody has won at Boston College since Al Skinner. It didn't work out for Steve Donahue. He goes to Penn. You think that's a natural landing spot. He was on Fran Dunphy's coaching staff when they had such success during those heydays in the Ivy League. He had won in the Ivy League at Cornell, which is a much tougher program to win at. He didn't get it running right away. Then, obviously, with the pandemic, just obliterated Ivy League sports. I mean, they went 2 full years without competing, so that's kind of a mess in and of itself. And then you're kind of going under the new realities of the Ivy doesn't do scholarships, but they have seen some programs, namely Tommy Amaker at Harvard, but also Yale's gotten involved in this as well, where they are doing name, image, and likeness deals. Penn doesn't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of support, it would appear, from the alums, even though they got plenty of money at that Penn Wharton school. I know there are people that went through there that have money, but they don't want to spend it on the basketball program. So they're at a disadvantage. It did not work for Donahue. He gets let go. He lands on Billy Lang's staff at St. Joe's, and somehow before the next tip of a basketball season, he's back at a better job, theoretically, as the head coach at St. Joe's. He's not the interim head coach, David. He is the permanent head coach. They have named him the full-time head coach of St. Joe's University. My head is spinning. Why wouldn't you just see how the year played out at the minimum?
It seems like St. Joe's is scrambling. They're just chicken with your head cut off. Let's just do things to see. Let's throw stuff at the wall, see if it sticks. I don't know. I mean, I think Donahue can be a good coach. I mean, 2017-18, he's 24-9 at Penn. Obviously,
beat Villanova, beat one of Jay Wright's teams.
He's playing. He goes 19-12 the next year, and then pandemic hits, and you don't play. So, what are you doing in recruiting? Nobody's coming to you to just go to Penn. I mean, obviously that is a big selling point for the Ivies and why they think that they can survive without giving those scholarships, just the name of the schools. But those guys still want to play basketball. So then you come out of that, you go into NIL, like you said, and I mean, last year was 8-19. So yeah, he's in a better spot. I think he can be a good coach. We'll see. He was just up and down at BC, unfortunately.
Yeah, more down than up, though. Let's be honest. He never got to go to BC. I thought that would work. I was wrong about that. I really thought if you could win at Cornell albeit in a different situation. If you could win at Cornell, you could figure out how to win at BC. That did not come to fruition.
I don't think anybody can figure. I don't know what magic or maybe what spell Al Skinner left on Alumni Gym as he exited the door, but like something has happened where nobody else has figured it out.
Hey, look at the bottom of your screen. You see the first words there, Big East. That had a lot to do with it. That really was a necessity for the Boston College to recruit, and more importantly, for their fan interest to be competing against UConn, against Providence, against people you went to school with in high school that ended up at different spots, that you work in offices with, that now you're going into work and you're talking trash about the upcoming game. How many people you think you know that are Boston College grads that stayed in the area that know anybody that goes to an ACC school? I mean, what's the closest one? Is it Pitt or is it Syracuse? Either way, it's like a 5-hour drive.
It's got to be Syracuse, but yeah, it's not particularly close.
I was going to say, does it have to be Syracuse? Have you been to Syracuse? It's like 6 hours. It's basically in Canada. Who knows? That is a long, long trip. No matter where you are in the country, getting to Syracuse is not an easy thing, to say the least. All right, so here's the thing now, big picture with the Big Five. You look at this. Guess who is the longest tenured head coach in the Big Five? I'm going to play a little trivia game with you. I don't think you're going to get this off the top of your head, even though there's only 6 to choose from. Can you think of it? Zach Spiker of Drexel is the longest tenured coach in the Big Five. Is that nuts or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new era, but that is crazy to think about. A lot of new basketball being played in the Big Five.
I mean, it's just it is not a good situation, and you know, it's one of those things where I understand why people are kind of a little confused at the direction of the Big Five. It's such an important institution to Philadelphia basketball. You want to see that thing go, and yet, you know, it wasn't just Villanova that was upset with how things were kind of heading. Temple wanted to limit the number of Big Five games that were played. That's why we went from a guaranteed 4 now down to 3, with one of them being a showcase game and welcoming Drexel into the fold. You don't want to clog up that many spots on your schedule, because right now, especially with the importance of the net, and with where the Big East is, where you have those 4 opportunities every year against UConn's going to give you 2, and there's normally going to be another top 10, top 15 team that can give you those chances, that can be bellwether games that maybe you can get. The issue with where the Big East has been the last few years is those next tier games, there haven't been a ton to come by. I mean, you got Creighton, who you know is always going to be top 15, top 20, no matter what. But then outside of that, normally there's going to be one more. Marquette, although people are I mean, do we still really put that much credence behind wins over Marquette at this point? You know they're going to lose in the first round of the tournament when they get there every single year. But
that's fired as Shaka. He's coming for you.
I mean, he never wins. I mean, he went to the Final Four at VCU. He sold his soul, obviously, to do it, because he can't win in the tournament no matter where he goes. He had 2 pretty good jobs since then at Texas and Marquette, and he's done a great job regular season at Marquette. They underachieve in March, but that's a different conversation. But the point being, Villanova needs these non-conference games, and Kevin Willard has been pretty open about it. You need opportunity. You need to give yourself opportunities to A, string together net 1 games, and then B, string together chances to get net 1 wins, because clearly they are what matter most. The quad 1, quad 2 situation is so important when you get to the committee.
Yeah, and I mean, just frankly, Temple and Villanova are the only 2 schools in conferences that can foreseeably get at-large bids. Like the other conferences, you're talking about one bid league. So the other schools, it makes sense. Let's play as many games as we can, especially if we're going to get a good Villanova team that, I mean, even at worst, it's going to be a quad 2 game most likely. So, I mean, you have to build that resume now. I mean, look what the Big 12 did a few years ago. Build that resume now to make sure that you're bolstering your tournament resume come tourney time if you don't win the Big East tournament.
It is not a great spot to be. You can't afford the Big Five to turn into a dumpster fire. And right now, it's not quite a dumpster fire. It's not too good, though. I mean, Fran McCaffrey going to Penn is intriguing, but of course, that happens when Villanova loses Penn on the schedule. So it cycles out. They go the other way. We'll have to wait and see how that all unfolds. One other thing, Rasheen, our friend from the Bleeding Blue and Gray podcast from Georgetown, he wanted to pick your brain on something you said about Kevin Willard in our last episode. He was talking about how many jump shots did Miles Powell make that made Kevin Willard look like a better coach, and that maybe you're giving too much credit to Kevin Willard, which I don't know what Villanova did to that poor man, but clearly he cannot. He is hot about that one. But I do think there's no doubt about it. In Kevin Willard's system, you're going to have to make some shots. He will do some iso ball, and you're going to have to create. But David, isn't that part of coaching? You have to go find guys that can make big shots. And if you're not capable of doing that, you're not a good enough coach.
Yeah. I have never understood the situation where people try and downgrade a coach because their players are good enough to go just make abnormal plays. That is a huge part of coaching, is just getting the guys in the system and saying, hey, go make me look good. My hero, Dean Smith, used to say, hey, the difference between a good shot and a bad shot is often whether it goes in. So I got no problem with the fact that sometimes guys make shots and it makes a coach look better. If you get enough of the right guys, they're going to make more shots and make you look real good. So, yeah, I'll agree. That's part of coaching. That's part of basketball.
And then just remember, this is a guy who went to North Carolina and grew up rooting for North Carolina, and they had two legendary coaches who utterly disdained the concept of calling timeout to draw up a play. So their whole careers were based upon get guys that can make shots and let them make shots. So it would be the most hypocritical thing in the history of mankind if you didn't support a coach going out and finding players that can make shots. But that is part of the game. I mean, Jay Wright did that. Do you think Jay Wright was as good a coach as you could possibly find? They were terrible in 2013 because they didn't have very good players. Mm-hmm. When you got good players, you can now put them in better position. If you want to argue that Kevin Willard didn't do enough in March with the pieces that he had, that's a different conversation. Yeah. And I think there are some Seton Hall fans that, based off of the feedback we got from Brian Webster giving so much defensive Kevin Willard, that maybe felt that way. But he got even better players last year at Maryland and broke through, got him to the Sweet 16. He will have the resources to probably put together his most talented roster over the next few years at Villanova. Then we can kind of judge what he's capable of doing in March. I mean, he has the tools in place to put together a second weekend and beyond perennial type of roster.
Well, and I think that it's just as important. Getting the guys is important, but putting them in the right spots is just as important. There are plenty of coaches who have had uber talented teams and weren't able to win with them. So it's a mixture of both. Which one's more important? Which one did Kevin Willard get the magic from last year? I don't know. Who knows what kind of players these guys are playing in any other system than Kevin Willard. We're talking in hypotheticals now.
And also, let's remember, look, I love Delgado. I love Powell. Kale was, my high school basketball coach's kid. Mm-hmm. I used to get yelled at in the gym and as he would be running around as a toddler. And a couple times, I think even George Kale said, my 3-year-old could do it better than you. So, I always had a soft spot in my heart for him. They were really good players. They weren't, next level NBA guys. So let's not act like Kevin Willard had these incredible teams that he should have been to Final Fours with. He built a culture in place that they were able to overachieve, and then they didn't quite overachieve as much as they wanted to come March. And that's something that he'll have to get figured out at Villanova. But I don't know if it's something that you necessarily want to say makes him less of a coach based off the resume that he's put forth to this point.
Yeah. And I mean, not to go back to Carolina too much, but Matt Doherty put together that first national championship team of Roy Williams. There were great players on that team. 4 of them were selected in the lottery after that national championship. And we all know what happened with Matt Doherty. He went 8-20 and got fired.
Yeah, and we all know that first national championship team should have never happened because Alan Ray did not travel, and that is a null and void national championship. All right. On that note, that'll do it for this edition of Holy Nova. But we have a couple of big requests for you. A, smash that like and subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. You've really done a great job for us the last couple episodes. If you keep that going, we're starting to make some progress in the algorithm. Please help us out. And then a big show coming up next week. We're only going to do one this week. Obviously, the big show is going on at the Pavilion with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson bringing their podcast to the Villanova campus. So we're going to not step on any toes. We'll let them have the week. I think they have a lot bigger cachet within the Villanova
We don't want to
audience.
take any of their audience away by putting our podcast out.
So we're not going to go head-to-head with that behemoth, but we'll take the rest of this week off. But we're going to come back firing next week. We're going to have the head coach of the women's basketball program, Denise Dillon, scheduled to join us. So we'll talk to her about hanging on to Jasmine Bosco, the new pieces she's been able to put in place in the transfer portal. It's going to be a great conversation. Denise is a fantastic speaker. She is a Villanova legend as a player and now as a head coach. And we're going to talk about what the women's basketball program has in mind for the upcoming season. So until then, for David White, I'm Matt Janus. This has been Holy Nova. We're part of the Big East Energy Network. We'll talk to you next week.